I'm Joe. I'm the leader, and we'll be talking about chapters 12 through 14 today.
I'm Marty, and I am answering the questions.
Member number 1, and then we've got Marissa.
I'm the videographer.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
So we're gonna start talking about question number 1. How and why does Frank's relationship with Angela suffer in these chapters?
Well, Frank is growing up, and he's the only one in his family right now that realizes that Angela is sleeping with the man they're living with, Layman, and his younger siblings don't realize this, and he is kind of disgusted by Angela and doesn't understand why she's doing this. And it wasn't in these chapters, but we see earlier Frank is angered by Angela begging in the streets, and he's slowly getting more, their relationship is suffering more and more as the chapters progress.
Yeah. And another way that the relationship suffers is when Frank moves out, so he just kind of severs some ties with Angela. And so, like, how do her actions hurt him? And given that she loves her children, why does she make these choices? Because clearly, sleeping with her cousin is going to have some mental tolls on her kids. So,
well, she obviously loves her children because she doesn't want to be there. She's only doing it because they don't have anywhere else to go. And Frank doesn't really realize that. He just thinks that she's just doing this because that's what she wants. And so he moves out, and now he's making a living and is trying to raise enough money to buy a house so they can move out. And I think he's slowly starting to understand that it's really up to him to support the family.
all right. And so would you say, like, in her defense, it's because there's no other option?
Yeah, I mean, Grandma Sheehan is already dead. The Uncle Pa and Aunt Aggie, they can't stay with them every single time. Like, they don't have a big enough house, and this is really their last option.
Okay. So question 2, what are some scenes or interactions that feed Frank's spirit, making him feel happy or proud?
Well, at the beginning of the chapter, we see Frank is at the library reading a really sophisticated book that someone his age really would not be reading, and the librarian is really impressed by that and sends a note to Angela saying how good her son is and how smart he is and how he should stay in school. So that's one way.
So we can tie that to the second part of the question with what do these show us about Frank's character, his hopes, his needs, and his motivations?
Well, it shows he's really smart, obviously. He's a great reader. He likes learning, and I think he's starting to understand that the more he learns, the wealthier he could be later in life, and the better he could do.
Nice. So it makes him feel happy that the librarian takes interest in him and sends the letter to Angela. Do you think that was the main motivation for him to continue his pursuit in learning and reading, or do you think it was what Mr. Hannon told him when he was working with Nicole and he asked Mr. Hannon if he could just stay and work and not go to school, but Mr. Hannon told him it's important to go to school. So do you think it was more the librarian or Mr. Hannon?
Well, I think Frank just really likes reading and just really loves to grab a book and read it. But if he really wanted to drop out of school, and I think it's Mr. Hannon mostly because without Mr. Hannon he would be working right now and wouldn't have the time to read. So Mr. Hannon was the main reason he was still in school and is learning.
All right. So Mr. Hannon and Layman Griffin are very different men, clearly. So how do they change Frank, and like, what are different things that they teach him, either directly or indirectly?
I think they teach Frank how to be a man. Mr. Hannon is like the good guy, and Mr. Layman is the evil guy that Frank shouldn't be like. And Mr. Hannon is a role model, like a father figure, and teaches him how he should act and what he should do. He should stay in school. While Layman, he's nice at the beginning when Frank doesn't really know what's happening. And then as the chapter progresses, right before Frank is supposed to borrow his bike, he takes it back and beats Frank. And I think Frank understands that that's something he should never do. He should never beat anyone. And it leads to him moving out. And I think that was the best option for Frank because now he's more of a man and more independent.
So would you say that Mr. Hannon's life lessons that he taught Frank were more direct and Layman's were more indirect?
Yes, I think Mr. Hannon had a very hands-on approach, while Layman really didn't even care about Frank.
Yeah. So we can tell in the chapter that Layman disrespected Frank and his mother by asking him to clean out his chamber pot and different things like that. So indirectly, he was teaching him to be a man and be able to take crap from people who have more things than him. So, moving on to question 4, Frank is desperately trying to learn where he came from and about the facts of life. What does he learn in these chapters about the excitement and about his parents, his conception, sex, and dirty things in general? Where and how does he learn them?
Well, we see at the beginning of chapter 12 how Frank figures out that his parents had him out of wedlock, and then his friends kind of make fun of him and stuff. And he's kind of curious after that, and ends up finding like a sex book in the library, and learns a lot of stuff that his father and mother didn't tell him. And it just kind of builds off that. He ends up getting kicked out of the library when the librarian catches him. But I think he's pleased on what he found just because he knows what's happening right now. And he figures out what's happening with Layman after that.
Okay, and I think the first textual example that it shows of Frank becoming interested, other than being interested in women, was when Mikey Malloy told him that he was a bastard because Frank found out that he wasn't born 9 months after his parents' wedding. So he was conceived before wedlock, which is normally not a good thing to happen in the Irish Catholic Church. And the way he learns it, I believe, was interesting because he basically opened up a dictionary and looked up every different word that was used in these brand new sentences that he'd never seen before. So it was just opening up a whole new world for him because he would search different words throughout the novel and then throughout the book, and then each definition would have a whole different word that he would have to look up that word. So it would just continue and continue until he learned a whole new things about dirty things in general.
And I think Frank's relationship with Angela also suffered when he figured out that she had him out of wedlock too. Because he didn't really blame his father, he just blamed Angela and was angered by her.
Alright. So do you think Frank does the right thing by leaving Layman's home, and how does his extended family both ridicule and show support for him?
I think he did the right thing for him. He needed to get out of there. He had just been beaten and didn't really understand what had just happened. Layman, I think, would have beaten him more if he stayed and would have been very abusive. He goes off to Uncle Ab's house and is now making a living and is saving all his money up to buy a house for his family. And I think that he's doing the right thing by moving out, but he's still leaving Angela and his little brothers there, and we don't know what will happen while they're there.
So, family members that have supported him, clearly Uncle Ab has been there for him, providing him with a job and work, but he hasn't been giving him food, so...
He hides the food.
Yeah.
I would say Aunt Aggie supports him too. When she walks into the house and finds Frank in Grandma's dress, and she doesn't judge him and doesn't make fun of him, she goes, and once she realizes why he's wearing it, she's really proud of him and says that his father would never be doing something like that.
I think that that's kind of Aunt Aggie's escape from having to deal with the family as much. She's like, well, it's a good thing Frank's maturing finally. He'll be able to take care of the family. I won't now. So that's kind of a relief for her, which is shown in the text. So I believe he did the right thing as well. He's pretty young because it said in the text he was like 13 to 14, correct?
Yeah.
So he did leave his home before most men usually leave their homes, but I think he did the right thing, and he's clearly making money and is going to leave his family off in a better position than when he left. So what questions do you have about the book? Do you have any predictions for these final chapters?
I want to know why they're still in Ireland. The grandma's dead, Malachi's gone, Uncle Ab's there, but he's just giving him a place to stay. Layman isn't really doing that much. I think they should go to America, and I think think they'd be better off there. Angela could probably find a job. Frank definitely could find a job, and then the little kids can get a good schooling.
Do you think they're held back financially by being able to pay the price of sailing over to America?
No, I think they could save the money and make it over there, and then once they get to America, they can make a lot more money than they'd have in Ireland.
So it'd be worth it. So predictions, what kind of things do you think are going to finish off in these final chapters 15 through 19?
Well, we know that Frank became a New York City school teacher, so I predict that they're going to go back to America within the next few chapters, and he'll grow up there, go to college, and just be raised there.
Do you think he's going to be raised there or raise himself there?
Well, his relationship with Angela suffered a lot, and I don't think Malachi would ever go to America with them. I don't think we'll see him anymore. So I think he would raise himself. And he's already, like, a man. He's living alone. Angela is not really a part of his life.
So do you think there would be any chance that he leaves for America without his family?
No, I bet he takes his siblings at least.
Very
Because we
tied
see at the beginning, like, how bad he feels for Michael when he comes over and Michael's begging him to come back.
Okay. And given that we know McCourt eventually makes a success of his life, what do you think will be the keys of getting out of poverty for him? And we've stated that I think it's going to be going to America is going to be the thing to do.
Mhm.
So to wrap it up, my final question would be more rhetorical because it's like they shouldn't have come back to Ireland in the first place. It was not the place to be. So I think that was their first mistake, which eventually